welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Retta Overturf, and I cannot tell you how pleased I am to see so many people here. We've been in the planning for over a year, and we're thrilled that we not only have people from First Broad Street, but we have several churches and organizations here. If you are from a place other than First Broad Street, would you please stand up? Thank you. It's everybody else's job to make you feel welcomed and have a great time. Restrooms are right out here to your right, immediately out the door and behind the drinks and snacks. And if you go down out this door and straight down the hall, there's another set of bathrooms. If you have not paid the $10 registration fee, we will have you use the honor system. So come in tomorrow. If you've already registered, just give your money. If you don't have $10, don't worry about it. Come on in. And let me just say that we are doing snacks at 9:30, not a 3-course breakfast. So snacks at 9:30 until 10 o'clock. After that, we will take the snacks away, but we will leave drinks for you for the 11 o'clock break. There's been a lay-led planning team who's really worked hard on this. I've gotten a lot of credit, but I had a fabulous team, and as I say their names, would you please stand up and stay? Okay. Jeez. Okay, so if I call your name, you're part of who I think helped, and just stand up and hold your applause till the end. Margaret and Park Deans, Nancy and Larry Hobbs, Joyce and Russ Brogdon, Pat, I don't see people standing up. They're up. Okay, Pat and Harry Turner, Brad and Retta Overturf, Sally and Rick Curry, Lisa and Phil Tenser, Diane Scott, Randy Fry, John Rowe, Nathan Flora, and Crystal Smith. Would you help me thank them for their hard work? And now I'd like to welcome our Associate Minister, John Rowe, who will say a prayer and introduce our guests.
Thank you, Retta. Yeah, y'all are far too kind. Retta, I wish you'd warned me about the 5-course breakfast. I'm already a little full. As Retta shared, I'm John Rowe. I'm one of the associate pastors here at First Broad Street, and it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Ed and Kathleen Kilborne to you guys this morning. Ed and Kathleen have been an integral part in our discipleship here at First Broad Street, whether you have heard them before or whether your grandkids have heard them. I was introduced to Ed and Kathleen on our confirmation retreats when I was the director of student ministries here. The stories that they're going to share, the activities that we're going to share together are going to help us to hear that old story yet again in a new way. Make sure that you give some love to Kathleen in the back. Kathleen's not going to have a whole lot of role up here, but she's back there at the table. Everybody greet Kathleen. And without further ado, I'm going to ask God's blessing on our time together, and I will turn it over to Ed for our edification and encouragement. Right, Ed? Yes. Yes. All right. If you didn't catch what Retta, if you're having a hard time seeing, you just need to twist that chair a bit. Feel free to maneuver around so that you can get the full experience of everything that's about to happen up here. So let's ask our God's blessing on our time together. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity for us to come together to share in fellowship and to yet again hear your story of love, grace, and redemption in a new and powerful way. God, we ask your blessing on Ed and Kathleen, and we offer thanks for them this morning for the ways that you have gifted them and given them a passion for sharing your story with all they come in contact with. God, we thank you for those that you have gathered around the tables together for conversation, for growth, and for learning a little bit more about one another and about who you are and your great love. God, use this time to grow us more and more into the likeness of your Son, Jesus. And it is in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Little technical things. This has been Good morning. My name is Ed Kilborne. Please give me a warm welcome. And you too are welcome on this good morning. I hope you're sitting next to somebody you love this morning. Because if you're not, you can move. I mean, look around the room. You don't have to go home with the one that brought you. This could be more fun than you thought. I've been imagining this moment for some months. Oh, well, more than that. Just wonder what you were going to look like this morning. Now that I see you, this is better. Really better, way better. This is the largest adult vacation Bible school ever. This is amazing. So that's good. Yeah. It is a 3-day event, so you'll be coming back when you come tomorrow. If somebody's sitting in your chair, be nice. Be nice. And if we have any more people, somebody may be sitting in your lap, which will be another experience there. So I imagine what you would look like, but I'm going to tell you, for me, the most important, we're going to start right out with, it's not what you look like, it's what you're going to sound like. Because music is one of the languages of the heart, so I'm trusting this morning that we can speak that language from the very beginning. I want you to sing after me. The higher you climb, try it. The higher you climb, oh, that's nice. The more that you see, 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 the less that you know, 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 the more that you learn, more that you learn, the higher you climb. Oh, that's so sweet. Now that you know the song, I'm going to set you loose. Well, I'm going to help you, but I want you to sing it. When you come to the end of each line, hold the note. Let it float out into the morning. There are churches around here. There are people going by this church as we speak, saying to each other, Methodist in church. on Monday morning. I wonder who passed. So let them hear the joyful noise. Are you ready? Here we go. The higher you climb, more that you see, the more that you see. Again, the more that you see, the less that you know, the less that you know. Again, the less that you know, more that you learn, the more that you learn. Again, more that you learn. The higher you climb, the farther you reach, the farther you reach. More that you touch, the more that you touch. Again, more that you touch. The older you feel, the older you feel. Again, the older you feel, the less that you need, the less that you need, the less that you need, the higher you climb. I've been carrying this song around with me for many, many, many years. Tune done by an old friend, now long gone, Dan Fogelberg, put this in a little album, and I don't remember anybody ever singing it. But I found the song and started sharing it with folks, and people liked the song. Easy to learn, easy to remember, plus it had a story to it. And in my earlier days, I used to work with young people under 60. And young people loved the song. They just say they like the way it goes around in circles and keeps coming back around, and it's just kind of a song about life and perspective. But then I had a young person say, but I don't get that line in the second part there where it says, the older you feel, the less that you need. And I didn't know. What was the problem there? My favorite line in the song. And then I remembered. You remember what it was like to be young? What did you need when you were young? Less? Everything. More. That was the journey of youth. You keep looking forward to the next birthday, to the next age of privilege, to the next thing that you will someday have, someday that you will see or experience. Everything is about more and more. And so their whole life forward to more. But there comes a time, and I think the sooner the better, but it usually only comes over the years, when you understand that much of what you've been carrying around with you, all that more that you have acquired, has become so much extra baggage. I've seen your garage. You've moved 3 times, and there are boxes in your garage still taped up from that first move. You have no idea what's in there. Your closets. Some of you lay in bed at night and you look up and you see a crack in your ceiling, and you know that the attic may someday just give way. Because isn't it true, over the years we gather and we acquire and we carry more and more. The idea of the vacation in Vacation Bible School, I've always felt, was we need a break from some of the life that we have carried and some things we can just put down. A sigh of relief. 1, 2, 3. and let it go, and then gain some perspective over the next 3 days, things that you will hear and think, because it's going to be about you more than me, where you will see what was important and what was not. And so this is also about change. It is about moving from where we are to a higher ground. And that's why I love this song. For many years, we journeyed to Florida to visit my parents. Some of you probably have done the same thing. You've gone back and forth between where you live now, and you go back to visit the old home place. My parents lived down in Florida, retired from the mission field. I talked about them yesterday. And when I'd show up, my mom would have boxes piled up in the front room, waiting to pass on the family treasures. She had like an unbroken subscription to National Geographic from 1934 to 1971. Several sets of ugly dishes. And magazine clippings. Anytime she read anything that she thought might be of interest to anybody, she tore it out and saved it. And waited for a chance to pass this along. Some of you are laughing at yourselves right now, not at my mother. And I say, Mom, I don't need your junk. I got my own stuff. I don't need yours too. And then she'd start to cry. My mother was a pitiful person. And I hate to see a woman cry. So I learned something. This might be of use. When the generation before you wants to pass on their treasures, take them. Say, oh, thank you. And I would bear them down like gifts from a king. I would load them in the back of the van. And nothing could compare to the smiles I would see in the rear view mirror as I drove up the driveway, taking those treasures with me. A smile that might not have been there if they had remembered that just up the road from their house, there's a little turnout in the road with a big green dumpster. No, I didn't. Oh, but I was tempted. No, I took all that junk with me. Put it in my closet where it is still waiting for my children to come visit. The farther you reach, more that you touch, the more that you touch. Again, the more that you touch, the older you feel, the older you feel. Here you go. And the older you feel, the less that you need, the less that you need, the less that you need. Higher you climb. You see the list that we need, the higher we climb. Oh, you sound wonderful. This is going to be great. Please give yourself a welcoming round of applause. I didn't tell you right at the beginning, and some of you may have already figured it out. The words to that song are on that little booklet on your table. I think it's on the back. See, turn it over. Are they there? Ha ha! But you didn't need the words, did you? You learned it one line at a time. It works very well. But if you need words, that's good. And those of you that go to the contemporary service, you can hold the book up there. That was sweet. I was reminded yesterday as we started to get settled in of the visits that I have made to First Broad Street, and it's been a while since those first events we did. I think we did a senior adult luncheon. I think it was in this room a while back. People asked me, "Do you still have that old van that you used to have?" I became identified with that old van when I'd back up to a church and they'd see all my bumper stickers and try to decide whether they really wanted to listen to what I had to say. And I miss my old van. I had that van for over 20 years. That old van was home for 2 of those years. That was all I had. I lived in a van down by the river. And then over the years, things changed, and I ended up with a new car a while back, a little Japanese thing, a Honda something, Odyssey. We got a little kind of a station wagon thing, which carried all the stuff and everything, but there were some things I could no longer carry because the van had room for everything. Everything I needed would be somewhere, and I had it all around. I left it packed all the time. I didn't have to pack up because it was so convenient to just leave it that way, and I always knew I had my stuff. Then I had the Odyssey and started to suffer just a little bit, mostly because I had to leave out my fishing gear. No room. I used to have a little rack in the van. I'd keep my tackle and all that and everything. And you need some things for therapy every once in a while. And I didn't have my fishing gear. I don't know what you all have done over the years of your life, what we would call a career or job. But if you were involved in a job that involved people, it was a people job. You had to be with a lot of people. One of the things you had to do, or you should have done, is you have to figure out a way to get away from people. You know what I'm saying? And my job was people. People paid me to be nice. And if you pay me enough, I'm not bad. But if people are paying you to be nice and you walk off by yourself, they think, how rude. But I discovered if you had a fishing pole, people say, oh, he's not being rude, he's going fishing. Fishing is a way of telling people, leave me alone. Because people who fish are often alone, and they're alone for good reason. Do you know people that fish? Yes, yes. So I've often wondered about Jesus. And you'll find over the next 3 days that that's one of the things I do. I wonder about Jesus. Did you know that he chose as his best friends some guys he picked up at the lake? Fishermen. What was he thinking? Introverts. Silent, monosyllabic men who spent most of the time in silence staring at the horizon. I wondered about Jesus. One day, Jesus and his favorite fishing buddy, Peter, had had enough of people. Oh, it's in there. You can read the story. They needed to get away. Peter was anxious to try out a new fishing rig that he had just gotten. Little Japanese affair, something made out of graphite. He'd never heard of graphite or Japan. But it was cool. He was excited, had a new reel with all kinds of bells and whistles on it. Headed for the lake, and as soon as they got to the lake, Peter went looking for a rock. Peter had a thing about rocks. Climbed out on a big stone there and started casting, setting up his drag, and getting to know his new gear. He was intense. Peter was intense about just about everything. Jesus, on the other hand, much more laid back. Jesus liked to sit up on the bank, let the fish come to you. Jesus had an old Zebco 404 rod and reel set that was giving him some trouble. I mean, he'd had it forever, so. It was Jesus. He'd had it forever. Okay, if I have to explain these to you, this is going to be a long 3 days. But whatever, he had a backlash problem. He had a lap full of line is what he had. And he's trying to sort it all out. But it wouldn't have done any good because it turned out he didn't have any bait. Turned out he wasn't there to catch fish. He was there to spend time with his friend. Relationships are nurtured by many things. We often think it's contact and conversation. But I think it takes time. You have to find a way to just be with another person. There's a lot of ways you can do that. But I'm going to suggest fishing is one of the best. Just time to spend with his friend. Well, there was water. Jesus had a thing about water. He was looking out at the lake and thinking, maybe I'll go out for a walk. But then he thought, no, I'm going to wait until Matthew and the boys get here. That's going to be a biggie. They're going to want to see that. And just then Peter yells up the bank to him and says, Lord, it doesn't get any better than this. Jesus thought maybe he was in a beer commercial. But then he yelled back down to Pete. He said, oh, yes, it does. Peter said, what do you mean? Jesus said, well, Pete, there's a whole lot more to life than just fishing. You stick with me, he said, and someday I'm going to show you how to catch people. But you got a lot to learn, Pete. One of the first things you need to know is where to look. There's an old man, down and out, not bad, forgotten all the things that he's ever had. Guess he really needs a hand to help him start again. Homeless on the streets, beg $1 or tonight. They may not eat, they look into our eyes for hearts with room to let them in. There's just no room for you. Our hearts are all filled up and there's nothing we can do. No room for you. Chin up now, don't be blue. It's nothing personal, but there's just no room for you. There's a little girl, so young and fair and fine, kind of ordinary, so she's left behind by the very circle she would die to be let in. What's so wrong with me? She begins to ask herself. She just can't see why she's on a shelf when she might be your finest friend. But there's just no room for you. Our hearts are all filled up, and there's nothing we can do. No room for you. Chin up now, don't be blue. It's nothing personal, but there's just no room for you. There's a young man, frail and weak, trying not to think about the truth. He knows he's dying, how he needs an open heart with room to let him in. He's just outside those doors. You know we have the room for him and more, but still we back away and say there's no room in the end. Then we hear those words again, that there's just no room for you. Our hearts are all filled up, and there's nothing we can do. No room for you. Chin up now, don't be blue. It's nothing personal, but there's just no room for you. Got tiny hearts, tiny hearts. We've got these tiny hearts. Yeah, Pete, he said, there's a whole lot more to life than just fishing. We had one of those, well, for me, a very awkward moment yesterday. Got halfway into a song and just, it went away. It's in there somewhere, but for some reason, kind of lost it. And I found it. And it's still there. Yes. Several people said that was encouraging for them. So next time I'm going to practice that little, just forgetting the words. Evidently that's a big deal for people. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for me. So I came across, I found them, and I thought, as Paul Harvey used to say, you probably, some of you want to know the rest of the story. Where were we? We were watching church from a distance. Remember? The back row of the sanctuary. And so I thought just for a moment we would finish up where we left off. Sunday school is over, time to go to church. Like a homing pigeon to my favorite birds. Well, I'm just sitting in the back row, far as I can be, when the preacher and the choir with the intro sung. You see, I got the Sunday morning sitting back row of the sanctuary blues. about the dance next week and who to ask along. Then halfway through the morning prayer, I remember Friday night, the date that I had with that preacher's kid, really out of sight. I got the Sunday morning sitting on the back row of the sanctuary blue. Just then the preacher gets excited. She starts to talk real loud. She's saying something about somebody coming back on a cloud. Whatever she's saying can't apply to me. I haven't missed a single week since 1963. People think going to church is just a waste of time. Time that could be better spent on a country club front nine. Church is not a waste of time, at least it's not for me. I even wrote the song during the doxology. I got the Sunday morning sitting back row of the sanctuary. Sunday morning sitting on the back row of the sanctuary. Sunday morning sitting on back row of the sanctuary blue. Yes, I do. Oh, there you go. There you go. For most of our lives, Kathleen and I have lived in the Carolinas. That's just south here, not unlike this part of the country, the South. One of the things I like about the South is you have options. You go out your front door and turn right, and you go a little ways, and you're in the mountains. And if you live down in the Carolinas at least, and it's not that far here, you go a few hours, and you're standing on a beach. I like that. And if you had that choice this morning, how many of you would head for the mountains? How many of you would head for the beach? Kind of a mix. Mountains, beach, both are places of perspective. And from time to time, as I said at the beginning here, one of the things about our time together will be looking at things and seeing them with new eyes and finding a place of perspective. A place where you can just let your mind go on random select. Think about stuff. We live down so close to the planet, surrounded by buildings and trees and roads and agendas. A chance to just stare off into the distance, to the distant horizon across the ocean, or a distant layer of mountains disappearing into the ether. Jesus had some serious stuff that he wanted to spend talking with his friends. Perspective. He wanted them to be able to look at this, and he knew it was going to be perhaps difficult. So there's a story where he took his friends up into the hills. He grew up in the hills, Nazareth. Little town, northern part of that little country. Some of you have visited that country. The stories don't say whether Jesus did go hiking, camping, or any of those things. But your imagination this morning is a part of your perspective, okay? So just picture it. Jesus and his friends, one day, he's taking them somewhere where he grew up, and he found a place he really liked. He wanted to take them there. Maybe that would be the place. Picture them on a switchback. They're going up a trail. Jesus leading his 12 friends. Higher, climbing higher, climbing to the top. And they get up where they can see. It's a little country. If you've been over there, it's small. You can see a lot from a hilltop or a mountain. Some of his friends just sat there in the grass and stared up at the clouds. Others looked out across the land. They could see the lake. There's the lake. The Galilee, that was where. They could see that little cove. That was where they had met him. That's where they had heard the words, "Follow me." They could see the river winding down into that lake, the Jordan, out to the east. They could see that river, and they could see that sandbar there, that sandbar in the Jordan. They remembered that sandbar. That's where Jesus came up out of the water, and the voice said, "This is the one." Across the river, up in the distance, the rising hills of the Golan, the deserts of Syria. If you were there today sitting on this hill, it hasn't changed. Galilee, Jordan, Syria. And then out to the west, a thin gleam of sunlight reflecting off the distant Mediterranean, the sea. It doesn't ever say that Jesus visited that sea. But I'd like to think he had to load some Buffett up on the jam box one day and head for the beach. He had to have just wanted to sit there and hear the surf. Behind him, to their north, were the hills and the rising mountains of the land of Lebanon. If you were there this morning and looked to the north, Lebanon, that hasn't changed either. And as they sat gazing out into the distance, suddenly the silence was shattered. 3 F-16s came screaming up the valley on their way to a bombing raid on a Palestinian refugee camp. And as the thunder of the jets disappeared over the horizon, one of Jesus' disciples said, "Wow, wow, that was neat." This was one of his younger disciples, one that spent a lot of time on his computer blowing things up. Oh, he loved to blow things up. Finally, Jesus went over and sat down next to him and leaned over and said, "No," he said. "No," he said. "That was not neat." He said, "My father had a saying." He said, "You live by the sword." He said, "That means that people that use things like that to preserve life may one day lose their lives the same way." He said, "There's another old saying. Remember what they used to say if somebody punched you in the mouth? What were you supposed to do? Punch them back. How did the old saying go? You remember the old saying? Yeah. And Jesus said, that's what I wanted to talk about today. It's why I'm here. We've got to find a way to break that cycle. And it is not easy. But here's where you begin, Jesus said. When someone does evil to you, work at finding a way to return good. Even, he said, even if it means you have to love your enemy. Probably the most quoted soundbite of his ministry. Love your enemy. What do you think when you hear that phrase today? I told this story as a sermon in a church I can even remember. It's Trinity Methodist in Salisbury, is that it? Salisbury, North Carolina. I was in Trinity Church, and after the service, there was a man waiting for me. That often happens when I preach. Waited until everybody had passed by, because obviously he had something on his mind. He said, Mr. Kilborne, you asked a question. In your sermon, you said, what do you think when you hear the phrase, love your enemy? He says, well, I'm going to tell you what I think. I think Jesus never met my enemy. Break the cycle. Break the cycle. Or else what? Or else someday our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and generations to come may find themselves on this little hilltop where we're sitting this morning. And they'll be looking out at this land that we love so much. And nothing will have changed. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The heartbeat of a nation. But sometimes in my own chest. They headed down the hill. Can you picture them? Jesus leading, and at the very end, that young disciple following the line down the hill, trying to figure it out. Love your enemy. Love your enemy. And then he thought, if you loved your enemy, they wouldn't be your enemy anymore. There are presidents the same way. They sell us our clothes and our cars. They sell us everything from youth to religion. And now they sell us our wars. I want to know who the men in the shadows are. I want to hear somebody asking them why. They can be counted on to tell us who our enemies are, but they are never the ones who fight or who die. There are lives in the battles. There are people under fire. There are children under cannon. And there's a blood on the wire. There's blood on the wire. There is blood on the wire. There is blood on the wire. There's blood on the wire. Jackson Brown wrote that song in 1974, back in the days where we just began. And as we look out this morning, nothing has changed. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Take you down to a little town in South Georgia, Jessup. You've probably never been there or heard of it. It's just you wouldn't be in Jessup unless you were going there. It's not on the way to anything. It was back in the day. I was doing a lot of little programs. In fact, pretty much over the 60 years, that's been my story. And I like it. I've always liked the little gatherings. I'm in a little church, fun evening, and once again, after the program was over, there was a gentleman waiting for me. Waiting with a question, only this one was really strange. He said, "Mr. Kilborne, do you like cowboy poetry?" Now, you probably would be thinking that, I guess, cowboy poetry is poetry written by cowboys. And if that's what you're thinking, you'd be wrong. An odd question for most people because they don't know what cowboy poetry is, but I happen to be a big fan of cowboy poetry. For no, it is not poems written by cowboys. It is a style of humor and of almost musical language. A style followed by many people. They write these pieces and they share them with each other. Very popular. It is a big deal. Even though you haven't heard of it, take my word for it. Cowboy poetry is something. They have a convention each year. Thousands of people come. Cheyenne, Wyoming is one of the biggest. Cowboy poetry. The best-known poets get up and they recite the work that they have done. This gentleman said, "I write cowboy poetry." And I thought, if you like cowboy poetry, I've got a poem I'd like to share with you. Please, please. He said, "No, now, I understand you do a lot of your programs in churches." He said, "You're going to have to be careful with this one. You're going to have to look over that audience and decide whether they might handle this poem." So as we began to gather here this morning, I've been looking out and watching you and been wondering. And I'm thinking, how much trouble can I get in? Thursday, I'm down the road. So I kind of thought, what have I got to lose? So this morning I want to share with you a poem by my friend Harry Yeomans, who turned out to be one of the better known cowboy poets in the country, who way back in the day shared with me his poem, The Picture on the Wall. You must be 6 by the 1st of November. That's what the school board had said. I missed by 1 day. So I moved to Grandma's and started school in the country instead. They had raised 3 sons of their own, her granddad on just teacher's pay. They were used to the antics of boys, and they said I'd be welcomed to stay. They lived in a big old frame farmhouse with shake roof and porch that was wide. 2 oak trees stood guard by the dusty dirt road, and pecan trees stood on each side. A hen house with white leghorn chickens, a syrup boiler out under a shed, an iron pitcher pump by the back door, and a tractor that was painted bright red. Some of you remember. Quilting hooks. Anybody remember quilting hooks? Up in the front room ceiling, Hoosier cabinet with a crank on the side, a wooden bowl where Grandma made biscuits, kitchen chairs with seats of cowhide. We ate black-eyed peas and boiled okra, beef steak that was battered and fried, cucumber pickles, corn on the cob, hot biscuits with syrup, and hot apple pie. Log corn cribs. At the edge of the garden, the smell of those burning oak leaves, drinking water from the spout of the pitcher pump, the drone from the hives of the bees, the swing of the shady front porch, the soft mooing of cows in the field that showed up twice a day for my uncle to milk, a bike with an old bent front wheel. Sunday, we ate in the front room. Thank the Lord for lunch, Granddad said. The little outhouse in the backyard. The chamber pots under the beds. The ride to school on the old yellow bus. Soft drinks you could buy for 5 cents. The pot-bellied stove in the classroom. A snakeskin rubbed off on the fence. The tire swing that hung in the schoolyard, older kids playing mumbly peg, girls with freckles and barefoot with pigtails, an old dog with a crippled front leg. Every day after school on the table under a little wire screen teepee were some of those cat head biscuits I could have with a glass of iced tea. Playing ball in the road with my cousins. Hide and seek in the big old hay barn. Being tricked while blindfold and barefoot to step in cow pies still soft and still warm. Just memories. We have them, don't we? Just memories of a long ago childhood, but there's still lots that I can recall. About living with Granddad and Grandma, like that picture that hung on the wall. There weren't no hamburgers or milkshakes, no soaps, because there weren't no TV. Of an evening, there were chores that had to be done. Most of them had to be done by me. In a basket, I'd gather the eggs that were laid by the hens while we'd been at school. I'd take them in careful, then sit churning butter by the stove on a 3-legged stool. Grandma would be fixing supper and calling words out I had to spell. She surely did believe idle hands and minds would be filled by the devil in hell. Granddad would be dozing in the parlor, a-listening to the Atwater kin. They was given the prices of corn and of oats, and if hogs had gone up by 1 cent. After supper, Grandma would heat water and pour in a big old cold tub. I'd take a quick bath, and I'd streak up the stairs to dry off on a soft deerskin rug. An iron bed with feather-stuffed pillows, homemade quilts I could pull up to my chin. Me and Grandma would pray. She'd give me a kiss and finish tucking me in. The string that was tied to the bedpost and ran to the small ceiling light, I'd give it a pull, the room would get dark, and Grandma would tell me good night. I'd listen as her footsteps faded away. She walked slowly back down that dark hall. Fireflies would blink outside, and I'd dream of that picture. That picture downstairs on the wall. Then one day, they planned a big party. They'd been married for such a long time. Cakes, fruit punch on the sideboard. I assure you there wasn't no wine. The room was soon filled to overflowing. There were folks there I could hardly recall. They were eating and laughing beneath that picture, looking down from the wall. All the deacons and the wives from the church, the preacher who was skinny and tall. He nibbled a brownie and gazed quietly at that picture hanging there on the wall. The picture showed Granddad sitting in a chair and Grandma standing up by his side. The picture of youth. He was handsome, and she was pretty, his blushing new bride. The preacher then asked him one question in his church voice, an ear-splitting bass. The crowd got real quiet. Punch cups stopped in midair with surprised looks on every face. He asked, "Just why were you sitting? With that lady standing up by your side, I'd have thought a gentleman would offer the chair, especially to his new wedded bride." I could see Granddad's eyes, how they twinkled as he bit off some more chocolate cake. Then slowly he emptied his cup full of punch. That preacher had taken the bait. The crowd looked at him. He set down his cup and he looked that preacher square in the eye. He reached out for Grandma and he pulled her in close. And smiling, he gave this reply. Most all of you have been married, like we have, for quite a good while. Think back. Think back. Remember your honeymoon? He said, and he looked at my grandma and smiled. We were young. Those love fires burned hotly. Just try to recall if you can. I sat because Lizzie was too sore to sit and I was just too tired to stand. The Picture on the Wall by Harry Yeomans. There's a little table here. We're going to have it each day. It's in the back. Kathleen's over there. And we have some of the music that I've recorded down through the years you can take with you. We carry some copies of that poem in case somebody just it resonated with you and how you grew up or whatever. And she probably has a few copies of that she could share with you. I will caution you, as Harry cautioned me, be careful who you share it with. There are sensitive people, not here, but the other churches around us. But the music's back there, and one of the things I have noticed over the years, when I began in 1964 recording my first album, we recorded on the big CDs. Remember LPs? And all that went with that. And then we moved to, I think we moved to 8 tracks came after that. And I would take my old LPs and just sail them out on the backyard, just use them like a frisbee because they were useless. And then we moved to cassettes, and they did okay for a while, kind of small and compact and handy. And then along came compact discs, which lasted, but did you know, not so much anymore. People come up and say, oh, I'd like to get a CD, but I don't have anything to play a CD on. One gentleman said, I'm going to have to buy a new truck. Because most cars came with a CD player. Okay. So there's a problem. But if you want to take some of the music, the albums, some 25 albums that I've done over the years, back there you can find the CDs. But in case you're one of those people that, like many people, and I'm one of them, hard to find a place to play a CD. Just recently, it was probably a young person that came up and said, Mr. Kilborne, why don't you put your stuff on a flash drive? I said, what's that? He said, cars don't have CD players, but they have what they call a USB port. You got that? And a flash drive, you just stick it in the USB port, and whatever you have on the flash drive comes, it coordinates with the Google brain in your car, and will play the music. So recently, we have made it possible to make flash drives of the albums back there. And what I discovered was you can put on one flash drive, you can put 30 different, you can put all your music on one flash drive. So it's kind of cool. But this is like the second event we've ever suggested that if you want to take some of the music, you can purchase it on, you just say which album you want. There's an order sheet back there. We'll go through this one more time. I didn't come here to sell things, but if you do want the music, I'm telling you, you can get it on a flash drive. And you can stick that USB port in your computer, and it'll upload. Am I using big words here? It'll upload into whatever device you, but wherever you find a USB port, you can stick it in there. It's a little tiny thing. So there's an order sheet back there that lists many different albums. And if you like the music that you're hearing and the stories that I'm telling, it's collected back there. And over the next 3 days, stop by the table. Well, stop by the table and meet Kathleen. She's a people person. I'm the guy that goes fishing. So spend some time with her, and she'll tell you what we've got. People come back there and say, Mr. Kilborne, I really like what you're doing, but I've never heard of you before in my life. So if I'm going to buy something, they say, what's the best thing I should get? So I decided, I did an album called The Best Thing You Should Get. Pretty close. The 2 volumes set, the best of it, all of the most requested songs. They're like the Mississippi Squirrel and the Back Row of the Sanctuary. Some of the songs that people have heard me do over the years on Volume 1 and Volume 2. There's a 4 CD set, which is more Ed Kilborne than you should really have to listen to. 4 CDs that can be put on a USB drive of live recordings, which is like this. That means it's just like what you're hearing. It's got the music and the stories. Some people like my stories more than the music. They like my stories. So that 4 CD set is called The Grateful Ed Live. Grateful Ed was a band. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Grateful Ed. And that also has some of my jokes on it. some of which were, I think, a little funnier than you thought they were this morning. I'm just saying, maybe you need to study on them a little bit, and you go, oh, I get it. Yeah. Walking on the water. That was funny. So, the collection is back there. We'll tell you a little bit more about them, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing right now is, as I said yesterday, you don't just drink coffee, you borrow it. And by this point in the morning, there are several people kind of looking at me. Permission to leave the room. So we're going to take a few minutes of a break here. Don't all stampede toward the doors at the same time, but if you are a guest of this church this morning, I need to let you know those are the doors right out there. There are snacks still out there on the table. There's still more to drink, and the restrooms are there. And check and make sure the gender there is a problem for some of us, not because of our gender, but because our vision is such that I just about joined the ladies yesterday. So I think the ladies is on the left, the men on the right. Okay. And if you're undecided, just stand there looking confused. But this is the United Methodist Church, and there is room for everybody, for which I am grateful. So, there's going to be that break. Then you're going to hear some noise up here, a little music or a tune, and that'll be the time to regather, come in and regather, and we will close out with the rest of the stories. You will be right back after these messages.
Your headset vibrated off the top and landed down. This was sitting right here, and it vibrated and fell off.
Oh, that's what fell down. Yeah. Well, I thought maybe you found it. Not yet. Kathleen. You can hear it well. Okay. 1964, that's 61 years? That's 61 years. So for 61 years, that's last count pretty close to 9,000 times that I've climbed up on this stool. 9,000. That's a journey. That's a journey. And for many of those years I mentioned in the early years, it was young people, which is what they generally do with you when you're unpredictable or unstable. They well, he can stay in the basement with the youth group. And somewhere in the middle of my career, a pastor said, you know, some of your stories are not that bad. And you could come upstairs and teach and preach. And I went to seminary. I was ordained early in my early years. I'm a lay person now. So I know how to do that. I know how to be up front. So from time to time, I'm a guest to tell my stories in worship. And since I did do, and some of you have seen me at confirmation, I did a lot of your church's confirmation retreats down in the mountains of North Carolina at Lake Junaluska. I have worked and can still work with young people, but they're an acquired taste. But they are a part of the story I'm going to close with today. Once again, they were waiting for me after church. This time it was a whole family. A whole family standing off to the side. They looked kind of ominous. Kind of like the Addams family. Just stood there staring. Once again, little town, this time South Alabama. Early in my career, they're standing off to the side after a little program I'd done for their church, standing off, watching me as I'm loading my stuff and getting ready to head out the door. And just before I got out the door, one of them came over and asked me where I was going to stay that night. And I didn't answer quickly enough, so they took me home with them. And I had to be their guest. Now, this is going to sound a little abrupt, perhaps even rude to say it out loud, but I'm going to tell you, being a guest is not one of my favorite things to be. I mean, you got to be polite. That can wear you out. People say, make yourself at home, but it's not your home. You don't have the remote. It's not your home unless you have the... Isn't it easier? I mean, you'll admit, when you're visiting, isn't it easier if they have a place for you, a part, maybe even a room at a lodge, somewhere where you can have your space? But there's a chemistry I consider sacred. It is indeed rare, where you will meet someone, a stranger that in a matter of moments, perhaps, it feels like you've known them all your life. Now, I'm not talking here about finding a new friend. We all have friends. We have many friends. I'm talking about the few times you meet someone that's like a sister you didn't know you had, a brother, kindred spirit, people that this morning you can think of that you are perhaps even closer to than your own blood kin. You find someone. We have a name for it in our family. We call it God family. You're born, everyone, into a family. You don't get much to say about that. But then along the way, there are those who come our way. And that night it happened. That when they said, make yourself at home, for some reason, and I don't know why it happens with some people, that's why it's a mystery and why it is sacred. It happens with some and not with others, and not with many. And when they said, make yourself at home, I went, and it began. A relationship that grew and grew. Back in that day, I toured a lot, and Alabama was one of the areas. Alabama in the South Georgia, that was kind of the early areas that I worked at after seminary. And so whenever I was close enough, I'd go by and I'd stay over and we'd sit around and reconnect. And years went by where I would visit once, twice, sometimes more a year. And something like 12 years had gone by. We're sitting around one evening talking about it. They said, remember that first night? We invited you. 12 years. During which time their youngest son, his name was Brian, had gone from the age of 5 years old at that first visit, now do the math, 5 and 12, 17. So through the years as I visited, I got to watch the parade of a young life as he made his way, 5 to 17. It was the first visit that Brian told me I was going to be his best friend, which was a bit of a challenge. He was one of those young people. Perpetual motion machine. Questions, that boy was intense. And every time I came through, he'd want to know everything. Where you been? What you been doing? And he would go on, and the only way I could slow him down was I tried to ask him a few questions about his life. Well, he didn't have a life. He was 5. He had a ways to go. But by the time Brian was like 12 and 13 and 14, some of those conversations got interesting. And Brian began to share, and some of the things he would share would be the kinds of things you wouldn't share with just anybody. And by the time he was 16 or 17, I was pretty sure that some of the things he told me I may have been the only one he told. So, it had happened. We'd become the closest of friends. And because we were close and because we were friends, at a recent visit, I was shocked to learn that my young friend Brian was a member of a cult. Brian worshiped a pickup truck. Oh, yes. An odd and bizarre cult, some of which may live around here. Most of the time they hide in body shops or garages around the community, but sometimes you'll see one of these objects of worship sitting out there in the Walmart parking lot. Easy to spot because they are mostly tires. Humongous tires, little tiny truck way up on top. Have you seen the truck? That's the cult. They're out there. And the cult has holy mud. They have priests. On Saturday afternoons, they go out in the woods, and the priests will throw this holy mud up on the sides of their objects of worship. Then they'll come back and parade the mud through town. Have you seen the mud? That's the cult. They're out there. And the cult has music. It's not a music you hear so much as a music you feel. I call it the thump. Have you heard the thump? You're sitting there waiting for the light to change, and somebody with the thump pulls in alongside of you. Suddenly the air pressure in your car has changed. There's a sound coming at you, not from somewhere, it seems to come from everywhere. A sound hard to describe, although some experts say it is the same sound that elephants in the wild make when they have gas. And that sound will travel for miles. You can be safe there in your home, sitting in your front room, and you go, the thump. Somebody lives near me. Or you could be here on a sacred Sunday morning in the quiet, and you listen. The thump. Elephants out on the streets. Brian had one of these objects of worship sitting in his driveway. You didn't have to know anything about pickup trucks to know that somebody loved that truck. His parents said if he wasn't asleep or eating, you could find Brian just sitting in his truck. They said sometimes you look out there and he's just sitting there. And I thought, worship. Brian worships a pickup truck. Now, I never said that to him. I watched him one day. He was driving his truck up and parking it across. I could see out their window across the lawn. He'd parked his truck at the curb. I watched Brian as he climbed down from his truck, actually fell several feet to the ground. But then as he got out of his truck, he just stood. He turned his back to me, facing his truck, and he just stood there for the longest time, just looking and loving his truck. Worship. You could tell that truck filled his vision. And I figured it probably filled even more than that. So that year when we talked, I wanted to talk about his truck. Brian said, oh, I've been dreaming about that since I was little. I'd picked out the model of truck that I was going to build and what I was going to do. He said, what sat out there on the curb took him 2 years, about $8,000 of his own savings, worked hard. When I first met Brian, one of the first things that I knew about him was how much he loved the church. If the doors were open, he was there. In the youth group, I think 1 year president. He sang in the choir, played in the band. And on Sunday morning, his family had a place like many people do in a church. They were the third row on this side. He was faithful. And one of the things that happens in church from time to time is pastor, he or she will get up and invite us to stand and repeat a creed. That's where we stand up and declare who and what we worship. I believe. I believe in God. I believe in the Father, Son, Spirit. But words come easy. Words come cheap. Especially if all you're doing is saying words somebody wrote a long time ago. It's not what you say, Jesus said, that is your creed. It's how you live. He learned something early on about people. He used to hang out in the marketplace, and he learned you don't find out what people believe by listening to them in church on Sunday morning. You want to find out what people truly value? Watch them shop. See how they spend their money. That's where Jesus came up with the line. Remember when he said, "You show me your treasure, and I'll show you your heart." Ryan worshipped a pickup truck.
Mountains, I have run through the
I've stayed in touch with Brian over the years. And a lot of years have passed. Brian's old now. He's like 30. And a while back, I got a letter. Brian pastors 2 little Methodist churches out on the eastern plains of Kansas. And I wrote him back because I had to ask. He drives a 2005 Ford Escort station wagon with like 300,000 miles on it. The peace of Christ comes, I do believe. I do believe when we get our priorities in order, where the things we profess become the things we perform, where we practice what it is we preach, where our values match our creeds. You could do it. With computers, you could do this. Just find a way to monitor every penny that comes in your door, say over a 2 or 3 month period, and every penny that goes out. All what comes and what goes. We have to do that from time to time. Do the accounts. Let's just say we could put it on a computer and they could make a graph. How would what we actually do with what we have compare to what we say are our priorities? Or you could do the same thing with time. If you could monitor every minute of a couple of months, everything that you did in your waking hours, how would what you actually spent your time doing compare with what you say are the most important things to you? That's why Jesus said, he actually used the phrase, don't kid yourself. Where your treasure is, there will your heart also be. I almost fell off the dock. I'd been standing there on the dock, gazing at my sailboat. There are a lot more cults out there than pickup trucks. Looking from bow to stern. There are times when things like that have filled my vision. And what fills your vision will fill your heart. So this morning, as we come to the close of our first day of Vacation Bible School, I'm going to say the peace of Christ be with you. Only this morning, it's not that peace. That P-E-A-C-E, no, this morning it's a P-I-E-C-E. These pieces of Christ, these stories that you've been hearing, the gospel. I know it's been told in a slightly different way. People come up and they say, I really like what you're doing. Some of what you do sounds almost like it's from the Bible. Well, my sweet friends, it is. In fact, in the little booklet there, you don't have to have that there, but we put a few of them out on the table. You can look through and you can see all these stories, the way they were told then and the way I told them and will continue this morning. These are pieces of the living Christ. How perhaps, I don't know, he would tell it in the language of this hour. So we close with that. The peace of Christ be with you. And in some traditions, they answer, and also with you. I like that. I like that. Any of you grow up Episcopalian? I like Episcopalians. They have little things that they do. It's like secrets. You know, you got to be led. They got a secret handshake. Have you ever seen the Episcopalian handshake? Oh, I guess I'm joking. But each tradition has its things, you know. It has its things, and so this morning, this peace, this deep sigh that we had a little bit earlier, just we put our weight down, and then we listened to this gospel, the gospel according to you. That's the gospel you heard in your heart as I told the story. And perhaps, and my hope and my prayer would be, perhaps you're hearing it for the first time. I just never looked at it that way. We call that perspective. God who came speaking a language of our hearts, we thank you this morning. Take and translate into our days, into our hours and minutes, into our dollars and cents, this living word. What you said those years ago, you still say now, in this hour and in this time. And we go from this place looking forward to what is going to happen because you are out there already waiting for us to get it. These things we say and these things we pray in your name. Amen. Amen. Tomorrow morning we're going to gather. Fellowship time. During fellowship time, there's some things you can do. Some people, if you get here at 9:30, maybe you see some little colored pencils on the table. We don't have a whole lot of them. We maybe not have enough of them, but we'll see to it. There's some sheets out there. When I first did my very first Vacation Bible School in Mississippi, they put some decorations out on the table. And since it was a Vacation Bible School, the decorations were coloring books and crayons. They did not know or even plan that when the adults got to the program, they do the first thing they did, they're going to come a half hour early. Because that's what we like to do. So here they come. And then what are they going to do? They're sitting at the tables coloring. Who knew that we like to color? So then we stopped using them as decorations, and from now, where this is pretty close to our 100th Vacation Bible School since 2015, now it's a decoration that we use for people. Come a little early. You don't have to talk to anybody. And if you want people to know that, bring a fishing pole. Leave me alone. I'm okay. And then you can come and you can color. Maybe on Wednesday we'll have a little show and tell. So that'll be there. So that's there on the table. The book has the gospel references to these stories so that you can study that, and the words to the higher you climb there on the back. So there's that. Okay. Finally, I'm going to make one more commercial. Not a commercial. Somebody asked about this decoration. So I'll leave you with this. Some years ago, some friends of mine joined a group to witness for peace in the Civil War in El Salvador. And they camped out, over 1,000 of them from this country, between two warring factions, tribes, factions in the strife in that country. They camped out, and because they were camped there between these warring groups, they stopped shooting and celebrated for several weeks a time of peace. And they distributed food and medical supplies to the people. And then they had to leave. And when they left, the people brought gifts. And many of the gifts were things people had made. One of the things were these woven straps. And when one of my friends came back to the country, they thought, you know, Kilborne needs a guitar strap. This would make a nice guitar strap for him. So they gave it to me, and I put it in my guitar case because I don't use a guitar strap. All my years I've sat on a stool. I don't stand up like the big boys do and play my guitar. I kept it in my case for many years until one day I just got it out and hung it on my guitar stand, on my microphone stand as you see it, to remind me of the work that I was given to do. I told you yesterday, you find out what you got, you find out somebody that needs it, and you go. So here I am. This reminds me that this is for me, a sacred place. And for my gay and lesbian friends, it's even more sacred. They come up afterwards and they say, thank you, because you crossed the bridge. That bridge is a rainbow between you and me and between all. And I'm thankful for both the song and the word and the colors. So this morning, the peace of Christ comes to me because this is my priority. And I look forward to sharing with you tomorrow morning when we get started. Until then, again, the peace of Christ be with you. And also with you. Go in peace.